Hello, Mel Stride here, Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, and this is GB News Originals. Have you noticed things are getting more expensive? Does it feel like the weekly shop trips out and your monthly bills are all costing more? Well, that's because the rate at which prices are going up across the economy has been rising. We call that inflation. In fact, prices are now rising at around double the rate that they were when the current Labour government came in last year. And a lot of that can be directly linked to the decisions Labour have made. So what's been happening to the cost of living, and why is it rising so fast? Of course, inflation went up hugely a few years ago, as it did in many countries, due to the impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That resulted in higher energy costs, which fed into increased costs across the board. And of course, it took time to bring that down. But thanks to the responsible approach of the Conservatives in government, by the time of the general election, inflation was at the Bank of England's target of 2%. But this chart shows what has happened to inflation since then. On the left, you can see where the Conservatives left inflation. That's 2%, bang on target. But since then, under Labour, prices are rising more steeply. That means the money in your pocket or bank account is not going as far as it used to, and any savings you have are seeing their value eroded. So what has been driving this? Well, the government have brought in huge increases in taxes. This includes a £25 billion jobs tax, which makes it more expensive to hire people. That's increased the cost of hiring someone on average earnings by £900 per worker. When Rachel Reeves announced this, she seemed to think it would just be paid by businesses and wouldn't hurt anyone else. But that's not how businesses work. They cannot simply absorb additional costs like that. So what have many companies been forced to do? They've had to raise their prices, passing on that tax rise to all the rest of us. Business surveys confirm that this is what is happening, and the Bank of England itself has been perfectly clear. Labour's taxes are pushing up prices.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
On top of that, Labour have chosen to significantly increase government borrowing and spending. Government borrowing last year ended up around 70% higher than was planned at the last Conservative budget. And again, that drives up inflation by pumping more money into the economy. When Rachel Reeves delivered her budget last October, the official government forecaster, the Office for Budget Responsibility, said that the decision to borrow such vast sums would lead to higher inflation. But the Chancellor either didn't listen or didn't care. And now we see the cost of living rising, including for those households who are least able to afford it. As you can see, if you look more closely at which items are seeing the biggest rises. It is the cost of household essentials that are rising even faster than the average and well above the 2% target. Foods like meat and dairy are rising steeply, as are electricity and gas bills, and of course, council tax as well. And when this is pointed out to Labour ministers, they respond by saying that inflation rose even higher under the Conservatives. That's technically true, of course, but that was something which happened across the globe due to events beyond our shores. The difference now is that we are not seeing the same thing happening elsewhere. The UK is an outlier, as you can see from this chart. This time it is not external factors driving up inflation, it's the Labour government. And higher inflation doesn't just mean higher prices in the shops for households. It also has wider impacts on our economy. The main way the Bank of England controls inflation is by adjusting interest rates. If inflation is too high, the bank will need to keep interest rates high to try to bring it back down again. Because the Conservatives managed to bring inflation back down to target, the bank has started to bring down interest rates, something which Rachel Reeves likes to try to take credit for. But in fact, rates would, in all likelihood, have come down faster if not for the fact inflation has risen again on Labour's watch. The fact that they haven't means people are paying higher rates for their mortgages than they otherwise would have. That's terrible news for homeowners. And it also means that the government has to pay higher interest rates on its debts, costing taxpayers billions more in interest payments. Our borrowing costs are higher than any other major Western economy, higher even than Greece. And at the same time, thanks to Labour's mismanagement, the economy has been stalling. Growth is down, unemployment is up. Normally, that weakness in our economy would lead to the bank bringing interest rates down. But thanks to the choices Rachel Reeves has made, the bank now has a dilemma. Do they cut interest rates to support the economy or keep interest rates higher until inflation comes down? There is a real risk that we are getting stuck in what economists call stagflation, high inflation coupled with a stagnant economy. The Chancellor just doesn't seem to understand how the economy works. You can't simply tax, spend and borrow your way to growth. We need to help businesses to grow, to create jobs and to invest. That is how we can grow our economy and make working people better off. If we don't, we will continue to pay the price for Labour's economic failures. Despite all of that, the Chancellor has decided to wait as long as possible before she delivers her next budget, all the way until the end of November. And we know she's looking at a whole list of potential tax rises to plug the hole that she has created in the public finances. That could put even more pressure on families already struggling with the cost of living. We simply can't afford Labour. Thanks for watching. I'm Mel Stride, and this is GB News Originals.